Live your life within the moment. And don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away. Move to the groove and the light that flickers. We get lost in the crowd, it's getting thicker. We get away from the drinks and chatter. Haven't said a word, but it doesn't matter. Till the air gets thinner. Standing in a blurry dream. No one else can see us. Live your life within the moment. And don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away.
The Road 500.
And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them. And they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Jesus Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God, saying, Glory to the God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill towards men. Now, over the years, it seems like we have gotten away from the true meaning of Christmas. We have Black Friday, we have Cyber Monday, all the stores trying to bring us in to buy as much as we possibly can. We have the Christmas trees. Everybody is so stressed out because they just want to have that perfect gift. And everybody is just wanting to go out there and...
Oh, gosh. Oh, my God.
Driving up the price on just about everything. Popular stores are offering plenty of bargains, trying to entice people to fill up their shopping carts both in-store and online.
Participate in the retail part of Christmas. But what we need to do is we need to go way, way back. We need to go back to where this all started. And this all started back with the birth of a baby. We have Mary, who was visited by the angel Gabriel and was given a choice whether or not to accept the fact that she was going to give birth to a baby boy. And she didn't know how Joseph was going to take it. Now, you want to talk about a strong woman. You want to talk about somebody that was truly independent. Mary made that decision without discussing it with anyone. She didn't ask her father. She didn't ask Joseph. She said yes. right there on the spot. If you went out and you got pregnant before you were married, especially in that region of the world, you could be put to death. I mean, could you imagine if you were Joseph and you found out that your fiance went away to her sister's house for 3 months, came back and was pregnant? I mean, can you imagine the absolute anger that Joseph was feeling, how betrayed he felt? And then one night, while Joseph is sleeping, he's visited by an angel in one of his dreams. And the angel says to him, "She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." Joseph gets up the next day and visits Mary and tells her that he believes her. And Mary actually takes him back, and she wasn't like, you didn't believe me before, now you believe me now. No, she took him back, and they made a journey from Galilee to Bethlehem. And that wasn't like walking down the street to your corner Dollar General. That was a hike, and it took months. So that just shows that this is a season of miracles. We have the miracle of the birth of Jesus Christ. We have the miracle of the journey that Mary and Joseph made from Galilee to Bethlehem. We have the miracle of the wise men visiting Jesus in the manger. We have all these miracles, but yet we're all focused on presence. That's where the story begins. And we're going to continue that story with my brother Dave Johnson, who is a pastor over at Bethany Lutheran Church in Norway, Michigan, and Calvary Lutheran in Quinnipiac, Michigan. So let's get into the real meaning of Christmas with my brother Dave Johnson. And welcome to the JJDrones program. It's Christmas Day. And we're all celebrating, the birth of Jesus here today. I just want to take the time right now to say hi to Simply Nanette for coming in, and droning veteran Lee Iverson and my mom, Explore with Drew, Ted from Off the Hook Outdoors, and let's see here, we've got One Vision Aerial. Thank you all so much for coming in. And Dominique, thank you so much for bringing in your entire family. I do appreciate it. But we're going to bring in my brother, Dave Johnson, because, he is, one, my brother, and two, the only pastor that I can afford on short notice. So everybody welcome my brother, Dave, to the program. How you doing, Dave?
Hanging in there. Like I said earlier.
Well,
yeah,
thank you so much.
Going on beforehand, so
yes, we did have a conversation beforehand because I kind of wanted to let him know what we were doing here, because he was completely unaware of what we were doing, other than the fact that I asked him to come on the show. That's the kind of expert show that I've got going on here. Thank you so much for
have on your show right now, right?
Exactly. And thank you, New England Dronelist, for coming in. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. So why don't you, you're a pastor, and why don't you give us a little bit of your background?
Okay. Well, I'm a pastor, and there you go.
Well,
I have my undergrad, going through the call process to be a pastor. You don't start off there in the Lutheran Church, or the ELCA anyway. So it's a particular denomination of Lutheranism I belong to, and there are several, just like there are several denominations. I can't remember how many thousands of denominations just exist within the United States. But for our denomination, you have to have a bachelor's degree. And I wasn't going for that to begin with, but I did get my Bachelor of Science, my BS degree in psychology, and my minor in criminal justice. After that, I went off to seminary and did a 4-year master's program and so I have my Master of Divinity degree. So yeah, that's sort of the brief summary is how I got here. It's a much longer story, but I think you're here for the Christmas story and not my own story.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good. It's good to kind of get your background so that people know where you're coming from. So now the Christmas story goes way, way back, and this was a period of time back when there was a lot of strife going on over in Israel and Egypt and the like, and basically, as I recall, the Roman Empire was really stretching out their arms and trying to take over certain territories. And so back then, Joseph was a carpenter, and it all depends on the expert that you talk to. Some people say he's a carpenter. Some people say that he was just somebody that worked in construction, maybe in even masonry. But it all just depends on the experts that you talk to. But they got, they were dating and they were engaged to be married. And then why don't you kind of take us off from there?
Oh yeah, Mary and Joseph were betrothed. It's more than just engaged. They were practically husband and wife. Betrothal. One of the things that I learned about, and anyone can maybe correct me on this, but the idea was that after they were betrothed, the husband would pay the dowry to the family, and so then you're agreed to be joined together as husband and wife. And after that betrothal, the husband would then go to the family home and prepare a place for their spouse. In most common cases, the families all adult together, extended families, and so the husband would have to go and prepare a room, a home, a place for their spouse and their family to live in with the rest of the family,
Okay.
so to speak. And so after that, then the groom would then go and fetch his bride, and then they'd have a week-long wedding party. And it's during this time of betrothal, and taking time to prepare a place for your spouse takes time. This could take months. So during this time, Mary finds out that she is pregnant, and of course, you mentioned earlier, Mary had Gabriel visit her, and he's like, by the way, guess what, you're gonna have a baby. And she says, I've taken health class, I know how this works, it does not quite work this way. But as you said, she accepted it. She said, may it be done as you say. And when Joseph finds out, of course, he didn't want to disgrace her. He loved Mary. And so he sought to divorce her quietly because, as you mentioned also, getting pregnant out of wedlock was a punishable offense by being stoned to death, not a fate that he wanted to see her face. So he sought to divorce her quietly.
Now, with the story of Joseph now, um, he was angry, right?
I would imagine he was quite, angry, pissed, to, not be so blunt. Obviously, his soon-to-be bride is pregnant, and it's not his child. This is an honor culture. This was a big deal. It wasn't just like he could brush it off. This would be grounds for, like I said, for her to be stoned to death. But he didn't want to bring her to public disgrace, as the text of Matthew says. So he was seeking to divorce her quietly, keep it behind closed doors, keep it just between the families, and leave it at that. And it's only until he had that dream with the angel appearing saying, no, this is, she didn't do anything. This is God's doing. And Joseph also said, I've taken health class, I know how this works. And he says, no, trust me, this is one of those rare occasions, circumstances. God is doing something much bigger than you could imagine in this moment. And going back, let's go back a little bit. You mentioned the Roman Empire, but before this, Israel had been in Babylonian captivity, and the history of Israel after they've been exiled in Babylon. And of course, there's the Assyrian exile, which is the northern kingdom, and the Babylonian exile, which is in the southern kingdom. That then they get conquered by the Persians, and the Persians get conquered by the Greeks, and the Greeks get conquered by the Romans. Somewhere in this time frame, the last prophet that we know of was Malachi, and up until this time, it had been over 400 years since the word of God had come to anyone. There was silence for over 400 years. No prophet, no word of God, no messenger to bring God's truth to the people had appeared. The days of old seemed to have gone by, and God seemed to be completely silent. And now, over 400 years later, is an angel announcing that God is about to do something. Not only that, but to fulfill the prophecies that were made back when the old prophets had spoken.
Right. And back then too, they were ruled by Caesar, and they did not like the fact that they had Caesar as basically their king, and they also had King Herod, who was also pretty much a patsy for the Roman Empire, and that guy was just think of Chairman Mao, Stalin, Hitler. Herod was a bad dude, and so the Jesus coming to life was basically something that was promised by God, and it was a way that it kept people. It gave people hope during the times of all of that strife, right?
Well, yeah, they were always looking for the coming Messiah. In fact, at every Seder meal, you would leave a seat open for Elijah to come to announce the coming of the Messiah. So this was a hope for the people for many times. And in fact, still with our Jewish brothers and sisters, they still are waiting for the Messiah. So they still celebrate in that regard.
Okay. So Mary got visited by Gabriel, and she pretty much was told, hey, you're gonna have a baby, and she said, sure, why not? Sounds good. Sounds like the thing to do these days. And then goes back to Joseph and says, hey Joseph, we're gonna have a kid. It's not yours, but it's God's. And he got pissed and wanted to divorce her, but then they ended up going through the whole rigmarole where he got visited by the angel, and we don't know which angel visited him that night in his dream, but we can pretty much just go based off that. Now Joseph goes to Mary and says, hey, I believe you.
Yeah. And basically, it says that he took her to be his wife.
Right.
He went to her and welcomed her into their household. And, that's the account we get in Matthew. And then we have, a whole another account that happens in Luke, which we don't get that whole story of the angel coming to Mary and Joseph wanting to divorce her quietly. We just really get them on their journey to Bethlehem.
Okay. Now the journey to Bethlehem. I posted the kilometers. It was like 118 kilometers, and that's just as the crow flies. That's not going around little loops and valleys and stuff there. So it's a hike.
Oh yeah,
it's a walk.
it was quite
And
the demand of the Roman Empire to, you know, demand that these people go to their hometowns to get registered. And the whole purpose of registration was so that they could be taxed properly.
right, yeah. So it was, some people call it a census, some people call it a registration, but basically it's for you to go back to your hometown where you were born, and so you can be counted so that you can be properly taxed. And Caesar was just trying to milk out every single penny from their people that they possibly could. Um, so so they traveled to Bethlehem. Now the travel from Galilee to Bethlehem, that wasn't an easy journey. There was a whole bunch of stuff that could have happened to them along the way. There were people that could have killed them or robbed them or done a whole bunch of bad things to them on their way. Isn't that right?
Yeah. But at the same time, it was very common for people to travel in packs just for that reason. You didn't travel by yourself. You didn't want, it's like not going down an alleyway in the middle of the night.
Right.
You wanted to make sure you're protected, especially when you're going with a very pregnant woman. on such a long trek. So they were most likely with a group of people, almost like a caravan.
Okay.
So at least there was, safety in numbers, so to
Right.
speak.
And so I mean, is there any text that talks about the journey from Galilee to Bethlehem that, describes the trip?
It's all just simply speculation. There is no biblical text. There's no historical record that we have. There's nothing that really alludes to the trip from Galilee down to Bethlehem, because that's not the main focus of the gospel writers. The gospel writers are really focused on Jesus and the purpose that Jesus has, in all four of the gospels.
Okay.
Uh, when you look at the focus, Mark looks not even at the birth narrative. He says the most important aspect of Jesus is his ministry. Matthew, he says the most important aspect of Jesus is his descendant back to the line of David. And Luke, his aspect is, Jesus being born is affects the entire world. In fact, all of humanity, going back to Adam. And John is very interesting. I love the Gospel of John, but he takes definitely a different route.
Now, I've I mean, I've studied up for this so that I can try and go toe to toe with you. But
Okay.
I mean, I'm obviously not as learned on this stuff as you are. But from what I have studied, as far as them going to the inn, it wasn't necessarily an inn. They actually went to a friend's house, and this is from various other experts that have studied this in their field. I don't know if you've run into this or not, but I've heard from many different experts on this that instead of like an inn, it was a friend's house that they tried to go to, and they didn't necessarily go to a stable, but it was basically a living quarters downstairs in that person's house because they didn't have room in like the living quarters, but it was an area where they kept their animals and stuff.
Well, there's a lot of fascinating details in that story, and yeah, you really tried to connect with family whenever you went to place. So that's why that speculation is there, that they went to a friend's house, somebody connected with the family, someone that they knew, somebody that they could trust. The idea in that comes from the text where it says there was no room for them in the inn. Uh, but of course, we're thinking Holiday Inn Express kind of thing, and that's
Right.
most likely not the case in this circumstance. And yeah, it was actually a room in the downstairs areas, like sending them to the basement. But this is the place where the animals were kept, so it is more like a stable. We don't want to try to beautify this thing, because Jesus was born in a very meek and humble manner. This is the place where the animals were kept, and the reason for this. Now, there could have been room. Just think about it. It's two people on a journey, and you probably had a lot of people staying in the house anyway. You would make room for somebody in your home. I mean, if somebody came to my door that was a relative or a friend of a relative and they were in need, I'm like, okay, come on, we'll make room for you. And part of the reason why there was no room, and this is again speculation, is in Jewish culture, well, just in any culture, having a baby is really messy. Anyone who has seen childbirth knows just how messy it is.
Right.
And Jewish law, anyone who was in the presence within the household of a birth, that household, the entire household, would be considered unclean, which was a huge inconvenience. I don't quote me on it. I believe that the period of cleansing after childbirth was about a week or so. So for that time frame, you had to isolate yourself away from the rest of the community.
Okay.
Um, and if you were to enter into the marketplace or anything like that, you'd have to identify yourself as an unclean person. So you'd have to shout out, "Unclean!" Just so people knew to avoid you. Because if anybody came into contact with you, then those people would be unclean. So
Okay.
there's a very good chance that the people who own the home sent Mary and Joseph down to the basement because they didn't want to, get their hands dirty, so to speak.
Right. Now, back then, they did have areas where you could go to give birth to a child. They did have cesarean sections. They had many different medical technologies that we have today. But this is happening within an area where there's just absolute viruses and fecal matter and diseases and stuff that could easily have gotten into you know the baby Jesus when he's born. We're talking about an area where there's a whole bunch of animals laying around. There were so many different and that's why I say that it's a season of miracles, because number one, Mary having the virgin birth, actually getting pregnant as a virgin. That's miracle number one. Miracle number two is Joseph and Mary sticking together and then traveling down to Nazareth together after they got married. And then miracle number three would be the fact that Jesus was even born and survived. Right?
Infant mortality rates at that time were high to begin with. So, you could attribute that to being a miracle in and of itself as well. Yeah. But really, when we get into the Luke text, which we're in, the real focus isn't so much about, the miracle of childbirth. It's about the cross that overshadows the birth of Jesus. And
Okay.
this has been making its way around Facebook, but this has been something I've known for quite a few years that I came across myself. Let's talk about moving on after that, the shepherds, because you read that portion in
Okay.
Luke. Shepherds keeping watch over the flock by night. First off, it's amazing that the angels appeared to the shepherds. Shepherds were the blue collar workers of the time, and given that they journeyed to Bethlehem, means that they must have been fairly close. So there's a very good probability these were temple shepherds. They were shepherds that were outside the city of Jerusalem, and they kept watch over the flocks of sheep, and their whole purpose was to tend the sheep and to provide the lamb sacrifice to the temple. And the
Okay.
lamb sacrifice was a firstborn lamb without blemish, a firstborn male lamb without blemish. And what they would do with that sheep is they would wrap it in swaddling cloth, and they would lie it in a manger to protect it, to keep it safe, so that it would not get damaged or harmed. And so all of a sudden you have this multitude of angels coming to these shepherds saying, you're going to find a baby wrapped just like that.
Wow. Now you see, that's part of the story that I didn't know. So that's extremely interesting. So let's talk about the wise men, because the wise men were basically astronomers, from what I've learned. And being astronomers, they were actually, akin to looking to the sky and studying the stars and everything else. But they saw one star that was kind of out of place that night. And why don't you go into that?
Well, when we talked about this, when I was in seminary, again, this is a whole lot of speculation, because the text we have just provide very little outlook on these things, because their focus was on something completely different. But the Magi that they say came from the east, being astronomers, because they talk about the star, and the common belief is that they also had their own prophecies told as well as to how the sky would look when this significant birth would happen, the birth of this person that would change the shape of human history. And so they looked, and all of a sudden those astrological signs all lined up. And so they were the ones that followed that. And when they talk about the star they followed that star over to the place where the baby lay. Nobody else noticed that. I mean, anybody else would say, oh, there's a giant star beaming light down on where the baby Jesus is. Let's go see what the heck is going on here. I mean, how many times are you driving by and you see searchlights up in the sky? You're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Where is that coming from? And then people go and they go and investigate. But no, there wasn't anything like that. There were just these magi, and we don't know how many in this group that were there, but it was just a few that came and made this journey in this trek. So they obviously saw something in the sky that no one else saw.
Okay, now there's a part where King Herod, I don't remember who he called out. What was it the Magi that King Herod
Yeah.
called in?
Yeah,
Okay,
well, the Magi were traveling, and they, when you're looking for a very prominent person, when you're looking for a significant birth, you're going to expect to find them in a palace. You're not going to expect to find them. And at this point, it says Jesus was a young boy. This is past infancy. It took them quite a while to get there. Um, and when they do show up, they find them at the place where Mary and Joseph were staying in Bethlehem. They were no longer in the stable. They had a place, a home to stay in for the
right.
time being. Uh, but so they go to the palace first to search for this child, uh, because that's where you find people of prominence, people who affect society. This is where you start. And so they went to Herod asking, where is this child?
And Herod, he was not happy about that at all, because he was, as far as I recall, he was like, "You're looking for the King of the Jews. Am I not the King of the Jews?" You
Yeah,
know, so he was ready to send them off, so that basically he could use them to find out where this kid is, so that he could go and kill it. Right?
well, yeah, that's the whole part of that story. Is the Messiah was supposed to be the ruler, the king over Israel, and the belief of the Messiah was that he would come to power and he would reestablish David's reign. King David established Israel's borders far beyond than what they had ever seen before or seen since. And so the Messiah was going to come in and be ruler, which Herod was, and he didn't want to have his power usurped. And the idea was the Messiah was going to overthrow the Roman Empire, and then Israel would take over that helm at the leadership of this Messiah. And of course, that's a huge threat to Herod's power, and he was a very power-hungry man.
He was, and he was a really bad man. And
He was
according to
also, I was going to say, he's
go,
also very paranoid. In his palace, there were a lot of secret underground passages that led outside, just in case somebody was to come in and try to kill him.
it's funny how that works out with dictators. But so he decided that after a while he didn't hear back from these guys, so he decided that he was going to put out there a decree that the soldiers were going to go out and kill every child under the age of 2, right?
2 and under.
Yeah. So he did that, and then after all of that happened, then Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, they all escaped down to Egypt, correct?
Mm-hmm. And the reason why Matthew brings this part of the story into his gospel is he really wants to connect the life, the work of Jesus and what God is doing through Jesus to the story of Moses and the Exodus. Just like Moses was rescued from being killed when Pharaoh was killing all the infants within the land, so too Jesus escaped being killed by Herod's grasp. And the Exodus was the idea that these people were set free from their bondage of slavery. And so then Jesus, in turn, the new Moses, is going to set the people free from their bondage of slavery as well.
Okay, so why don't you go into the gifts of the gold, frankincense, and myrrh that that they brought?
Well, the frankincense, that was an anointing oil. And in fact, that was commonly used to help, make the dead not smell so bad when you're preparing them. So that was the idea of again overshadowing the cross is always overshadowing, looming over the head of Jesus. Um, the the myrrh, I can't remember what the myrrh is, to be honest. The I might be conflating the frankincense and the myrrh, but then they say that the gold would have been used to help provide some sort of livelihood in Egypt while they sat and waited until the coast was clear, until Herod died, and they could safely return back to their hometown of Nazareth in Galilee.
Yeah. So I mean, so there's a number of miracles that are just there along the way, and I mean, all of this stuff is overshadowed now through with Santa Claus and Christmas trees and presents and everything else. How do people like the people that are here in the chat, and we've got 8 people in the chat right now, and people have been coming in and out. So I mean, this isn't like huge YouTube fodder. It really isn't. But I mean, this is something that I think is important. Um, so, how does somebody continue to remember the miracles, the reason for the season, other than, you know, presents and Christmas trees and all of the stuff that doesn't really matter, because all that stuff is secondary, because without the birth of Jesus Christ, we wouldn't even be having a Christmas.
Well, if you were to talk to the gospel writers, they would even say that without what happens to Jesus on the cross and the resurrection, the birth itself is insignificant. The reason why the birth even means anything is because of the death and resurrection of Jesus himself. Otherwise, Jesus would just been simply another man that lived and walked this earth. That would have gone down without any sort of recognition in history books whatsoever. And the interesting thing is the things that we have to represent Christmas, the gifts, the Christmas tree, all are supposed to represent the overshadowing of the cross and the life that Jesus would give for each and every one of us. So the gift, Jesus being the gift of God to us, the tree representing the tree, the cross in which Jesus would hang upon. And even it is attributed to Martin Luther to start putting lights on the tree. In fact, there's nothing like a drunken German to decide, hey, what's a good idea? Let's throw some fire on this dried out Christmas tree and make it look pretty. But that was to signify that Jesus, being the light of the world, would then hang on that tree itself. So everything, the gospel writers, the traditions that we have, were all meant to signify that the cross would always overshadow the birth.
Okay. So that doesn't answer my question, but
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to take away the things that we have as part of our tradition, but they should be a refocusing on what they're supposed to mean.
Right. Yeah. And the one thing that drives me nuts is when you see the people on the Black Friday, and we don't really have that much anymore because everybody does their shopping online. But just going into debt because you want to get somebody that perfect present, or doing things that don't really matter. I mean, I remember back when I didn't even have a place to live, and we gave oranges for Christmas presents because that's what we could afford, and I've never really been able to afford like really expensive gifts, but I've always tried to do my best to give what I can, because it is the season of giving, right? That's what we're told, and but every day should be a day of giving. We're asked to serve one another as Christ has loved us, right?
Yeah.
And so every day should be basically a season of giving. This is just kind of like a highlight of it, but for people to go out there and stress out about it and knock people down because they want to get the best deal on a TV, that's not what the season's about. And I just would like to be able to refocus and be able to almost humanize the story, because the story of Jesus being born is a human story, right?
Yeah, and it's more than human story though. It's about God telling people that they're not forgotten, that they matter, that He's going to rescue them. He He hasn't given up on them.
Right.
There's so many people in this world that really need to hear that there's a God out there, that someone out there is not going to give up on them, that is willing to give absolutely everything for them to be able to give them life. And that's the whole purpose of our giving. That's what it should be. It's about giving life to other people. It shouldn't be about the cost. It shouldn't be about the money. It's about giving life to one another, because came to give us life and to give it abundantly. And we are then to in turn do the same thing, give life and give it abundantly to others.
Not only life, but hope, right?
Well, in hope, in life, there is hope. Life, light, hope, they all tie into one another. You can't have one without the other. When people seek to end their life, it's because there is no longer any hope. There's no
Right.
longer any light.
So I mean, so like you said, there are a lot of people out there that, especially around the holidays, that get into a deep depression because they've lost hope, and they've lost. They don't think that they're worth anything, and I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it right on the head when you said that there are people out there that need that hope, and Pastor Dave here, he's my brother, and I love him to death. And I know that if there was anybody out there that ever needed somebody to turn to because they felt like they were going to end their life, he would be a resource to turn to, because he is a great man, and really cares about others, and that's part of what he does. But if you're out there and you're not feeling like you matter, and you don't feel like you have hope, there is a place to turn to, that you can turn to God, and you can go to the story of Jesus's birth, and you can see all of the miracles that happen along the way, because that is what can give you hope, living with God and Jesus in your life. And I honestly think that people need more of that than they are a lot of the things that they turn to nowadays.
Yeah, all the other things are just trying to fill a void that can never be filled.
I do have a couple of questions for you from the chat that I've saved.
Yeah, go for it.
Explore with Drew asks, Dave, do you know any Lutheran pastors that are from northern Alberta, Canada, and fly into remote communities?
I wish I did, but no, I do not. No, sorry.
And then from One Vision Ariel, we got, I've always wanted to ask a pastor if they've ever traveled to any locations like Abraham's tomb. Being on the grounds and in the tombs was just surreal.
I really wish. There have been several opportunities I've had to be able to participate in travels to the Holy Land. Just unfortunately, cost prohibitive is what they are. I would absolutely love to go if I ever get the opportunity and am able to afford it. That is one of my bucket list items to do.
And Dave's got multiple children that he needs to take care of as well.
Yeah, we got quite the crew.
He's got quite the crew. And so if you think that you're seeing double right now, you're not. He looks just as ugly as I do. So
I'm the better looking one, but
give it a couple years, brother.
Yeah, I got age on my side, old man.
That is very true. But I'm not going to keep you, because I know that you've got things that you want to do. If anybody else has any questions in the chat, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to let Dave go, and then we'll finish out this video. But I do really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason.
And I would like to have you on again. because number one, I think that you're a good resource as far as Christianity goes. But for number two, I mean, you're much more entertaining than I am. Hang on just 1 second. I did forget to do one thing.
All
Hang
right.
on. I know that this is going to shock everybody in the community, and it's probably going to shock you as well. When I left home, I forgot my charging cord for my laptop, and I was very upset about it because if I don't have my charging cord, I'm not going to make it through the full hour on the live stream. So I ended up going to Walmart down in De Pere, Wisconsin. So big shout out to Walmart in De Pere, Wisconsin, because they don't usually let drivers in their parking lot, but they gave me an exception. So I went to the Walmart. I got myself a laptop cord so that I could charge my laptop during the live stream. And lo and behold, I have everything plugged in, but I don't have the power cord plugged into the outlet. So I just got a notification that my computer was about ready to shut down, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't I didn't plug it in." Let's see. Ted asked, "Dave, can you pray for me? I'm taking the kids to Florida tomorrow."
Yes, definitely. Oh, I don't know if it's whether to pray for safe travels or to pray to avoid Florida man, but I'll do both.
One Vision Ariel says, "True, I could see that Persia in biblical days is what we know today as Baghdad, Iraq. So your safety would definitely be top priority as it's a dangerous place."
Yes, it is.
Let's see here. Drew says, "Take care, Dave. Pleasure." And One Vision Ariel says, "Thanks for joining us, Dave. Pleasure to meet you." Well, kind of.
Pleasure to meet you too, One Vision.
But honestly, especially at Easter, let's plan on doing another one of these. We can
Sure,
talk
why
about
not?
the Easter story because, you're the one that brought it up.
Yeah. Well, everything is about Easter. All the Gospels are all about Easter. Even Luke, when we talk about the Luke story, it comes to the very conclusion where Jesus says, "Don't you understand that it is necessary that this was all supposed to happen?"
Right. Yeah. And you know what? And I appreciate everybody that is here in the chat right now because, like I said with Dave earlier,
Definitely praying for you.
This is definitely not. This is basically, YouTube suicide. They're gonna, completely. They're gonna completely, throttle this video. So definitely, if you get a chance, share this video out because if you don't share it out, YouTube's not going to. And Dave, thank you so much. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I love you. And Merry Christmas to you and all the kids. And JoJo is not JoJo. I don't know who she is. Just let her know that I said that.
I'll let her know that. Merry Christmas, Jason. Love you.
Merry Christmas too. Love you too. So let's see here. Ted says, "Pray for me dealing with the kids in the truck for 15 hours." And One Vision Ariel says, "Drive for 15 hours with the kids. Are we there yet? I got to pee. You'll be pulling your hair out." Earplugs and blindfolds, Ted. Everything is for you, not the kiddos. And then Dan says, "Thanks for coming on the live stream, Dave." I'm going to do a little something here. This is already, YouTube suicide. So I'm going to continue on with my suicide. I'm going to play you a song. And YouTube, just so you know, I do have the right to play this song. It's through Epidemic Sound, so. But I just want you to listen to it. And we've heard it many, many times throughout the years. We've heard it on radio. We've heard it on TV. We've heard it on songs. But have we really listened? No, I'm not going to sing, Dan. I'm not going to sing. That's why I said I have the rights to play this song. But I just want you to listen to it. I want you to listen to the words. Because this is what Christmas. Well, yeah, Dan was going to be my musical guest, but his agent is too expensive. I've got Epidemic Sound, and I pay for that, and it's a lot cheaper than Dan singing. But listen to the song, listen to the words, because that is what we've been talking about today. Christmas. And we are all called to love one another and to serve each other. I really wanted to do this live stream because I wanted to bring the message of Christmas to everyone. I wanted to bring it to YouTube because I don't think there's enough people out there that do this. But I think that it could be a movement. It could be something that people could do year after year to basically help remind us that this was a holy night. This was a divine night. This was a night that was given to us. It was promised to us by God to give us hope. It was to give us peace. And all this came down to the birth of a baby in a manger. There was just all of this strife going on. And we all deal with our own strife day in and day out, right? There's bills that we can't pay sometimes, and there's taxes, and the political people are doing their thing, and these people are doing their thing, and nobody is talking to one another. And you start to lose hope, and you turn to drugs and alcohol and all these different things that you don't need in your life. But God was there to give you hope, and He's still there to give you hope. And that's what Christmas is all about. It's a season of hope. It's a season of giving. It's a season that every single one of us can turn to the baby Jesus, because He was born to give us hope, because 33 years later, as my dad said, He died on a cross for us. So I'm hoping to bring Davey back for Easter, and I'm hoping to bring Dave back for other times too, not just for Easter. But I mean, he's a great guest. He's very knowledgeable. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of him that he's my brother. And I love him, and I love all of his kids and his wife. And this is the last live stream of 2022. My next live stream is going to be January 1st, 2023, and I don't have a New Year's resolution yet, but I'm coming up with one. The New Year's resolution that I did for 2022 was to do at least one video a week for an entire year, and I just got one more video to do before the end of the year, and I've got to work on it. I've already started working on it, but I have a lot more work to do on it. But the one thing that I've learned from doing these live streams this year, and towards the end of the year, was that I need to use my platform for giving, for helping people. I don't have a huge platform, but you know what? We raised enough money for 15 wreaths for Wreaths Across America. And if you would see the faces of the veterans that I told that to, it's amazing, the impact. And I'm not going to go into a whole bunch with the Wreaths Across America. That's all going to be part of the video series. But, we raised money for that. We raised money to help out a friend. And that is that's what we're called to do. We're called to help people. We're not supposed to be, me all the time. Yeah, is there a time that, we want to, just kind of be selfish and take some time for ourselves? Of course we do. We're all human, right? But we're all called to serve. We're all called to help each other. And this is now what we can focus on. And Paul says, I'm just now learning that you have a bro. No, you just are remembering that I have a brother. But I thank all of you that have been here with me throughout this entire year on the live streams and watching my videos. And I ask you to share this video out. Share it with a friend. Share it on your social media, because YouTube isn't going to be pushing this video out. This doesn't fit in their algorithm. And I'm not doing it for the publicity or the notoriety. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing that to share the message of hope. And if you are out there and you are trying to find hope, reach out to somebody, because there's always light at the end of that tunnel, no matter how long that tunnel is. But I wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas, and we will see you in the new year. Thanks for coming along for this ride with me, and we'll see you later on down the road. Bye, everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Now my wheels.
Ha! Wrong one.